Good morning and welcome to Wire Live number 16. Today is all about accessibility, which I'm really passionate about. I know my guest is, and yeah, today I am joined by the absolutely brilliant Rory Preddy from a company called Microsoft. Hi, Rory.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, we're a small startup out of Seattle. I don't know if you've heard about us. We're quite good at accessibility, and I'm really privileged to be here to speak to you on something that I consider passionate is accessibility. And thank you so much for Livewire to hosting me today.
No worries. So you're a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft and obviously a massively passionate advocate for accessibility in particular. So what does your day-to-day look like at Microsoft, and how does your role really translate to what you do?
So I have two roles. One is Java advocate. So I help the product teams really make delightful experiences for the millions of developers that use Azure and Java at Microsoft. Yeah, I know, it's not your grandfather's Microsoft. I'm a Java advocate working on a Mac and based out of South Africa. So yeah, everything's mixed up. But I'm also an accessibility advocate. So with Microsoft, we use accessibility to drive a lot of our tools. You go into Microsoft.com, the Office site, Docs and Learns, all of those are accessible. So we use those tools. And what I noticed is that when I joined Microsoft, my passion was aligned with their passion. So, and they've given me the opportunity to really reach out to the developer community and advocate the incredible tooling that they use for their accessibility for their developer ecosystem.
Brilliant. So I guess a great place to start is, what do we actually mean by accessibility? So I think maybe different experiences might have different understandings of what that actually means. So when we're talking maybe digital accessibility and accessibility as a whole, really, because there's no real difference, I suppose, what does that really mean to you?
Okay, so first I have to define what disability means. Now, I'm 42, so I recently had a midlife crisis, and I bought one of those scales that measures BMI. So I jumped on the scale and I put on my weight. At the time it was 65 kilos. I'm 49 kilos, so I have done the keto very well. And then I put in my height, 120 centimeters or 4'1", and then they had a little a baby or an adult sign there. So I thought, I'm not really a height of an adult. Let me put a baby there. And I got on, and the thing went, and it did its little AI thing, and then came back, and it called me heinous names, like literally names that I can't even mention on air. And I thought to myself, whoa. Whoever designed this scale is making people feel disabled, because I felt disabled right there. But when I got off the scale, I'm not disabled anymore. So disability is a mismatched human condition. It's not being able to use a product or a service and feeling that you left out. Accessible is designing for everyone to make them not feel disabled. So that's really the two definitions I want to define before we proceed. And it really is a shining light on how you can bring in innovation. Because once you look at accessible as that definition, you can reach out to the rest of the ecosystem, and you can create that innovative approach to your entire audience without excluding them and making them feel disabled.
I love that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the more open-minded you are about these things, obviously just focusing on one particular disability or thinking as many as you can, dreaming up the sort of possible, and then applying fixes for those or ways to help particular demographics doesn't always capture everything. And I think so. Why do we still have this problem, do you think? Why is it such a big topic? There's a massive obviously discussion, one of the key topics at Inspire currently with Microsoft, but why in this day and age are we still here talking about accessibility, and why is it just not the norm?
Okay, so I'm going to just stand up so you can see. I'm 4'1". I have achondroplasia. I have dwarfism, and I'm pretty short. Now, for you to be as short as me, and it's nigh impossible. So as a result, just this keyboard and the laptop, if I position it there, you can see that I've got a spare keyboard, I have a mouse, and I've got a trackpad here. And this is me trying to be accessible. But as a result, you now are in my empathy bubble. I've told you about my difficulties, and now you can see, wait a second, I can kind of distance myself from my keyboard, and I can become like Rory to understand his persona spectrum. So what we advocate is to look at the persona spectrums, and they're clearly available on the internet, and there's not that many that you have to actually adhere to. And you become these individuals and you create that persona spectrum around the people. And once you do that, you can pop that empathy bubble. So what we're seeing now is that with this move to accessibility, people are understanding more about these persona spectrums. And it goes all the way back to inclusive design. So inclusive design looks at the persona spectrums, and then they try to solve for one spectrum and extend it to many. So short people like myself, I might also be in the same perspective perspective as a woman. Not that I'm calling myself a woman, but typically females are a little bit shorter than males, though. So as a result, by solving for me, you might want to actually extend that and you solve for women. And it goes back to originally with inclusive design. The U.S. Air Force in 1920 was designing cockpits for pilots. So they said, let's take all 4,000 pilots that we have there, and we'll take the average and we'll design the cockpit for them. Now, they did that, and they designed the planes for that, and planes started crashing. So they said, what's going on? Bring those people back, have that average person, let him sit down, and he couldn't reach the cockpit. So what they realized then is that they designed for one, and they didn't extend it to everyone else. They designed for no one. So they started looking at making the seats adjustable. And that is exactly what you have in your car. So your car is adjustable in a million different ways. The actual steering wheel, the seat height, the backrest, because you realize the perspective, there is no average. So what we're seeing now also is that people are acknowledging there isn't an average, and that what they need to do is understand the perspectives of the individuals using your system, solve for one, extend to many with those personas, and then be able to cater for everyone and make them feel accessible.
I think that resonates really well with me, I think, as well. I think one point, and maybe I can be a bit more candid than you can because you're obviously representing Microsoft, but I think for me, whether you're an architect, a developer, any role that's involved in designing a product or a service or something that you're delivering to consumers, if you're not 100% inclusive in your design process and really think about that ahead of time, you're being exclusive and you are excluding people and ultimately delivering a terrible service, whether that leads to someone feeling more disabled than they would have done otherwise. I mean, that's ultimately the thing you absolutely need to avoid. And yeah, I completely agree. It's that understanding, learning what you can. So how do we design and program for accessibility then? What's the best approach?
So typically, in the software world, accessibility actually follows a very similar life cycle to bugs. So with the classic waterfall paradigm, you create your software and you deliver your software and then you fix the bugs. Now, a bug in production is almost impossible to solve because you've got all of this debt that you have to incur there. And accessibility is very similar. So what you should do is you should check for accessibility throughout your design process as part of like the agile mindset to squash the bug before it actually gets to production. And that way you'll have less debt to be able to do that. So if you have a website right now and you go check your website, you might have a lot of accessible problems. And you can use that with accessibilityinsights.io, the same tooling that I use every day to check the accessible. But it's easier for you to go, wait, I've got a basic page, it's got a few form fields there, I'm going to check it's accessible, and then you rinse and repeat. And it becomes almost second nature once you have that, because your DevOps processes are going to check there. You won't be able to check into Git if you're not accessible. And that's what we do at Microsoft. So you have a page, you have a site, you have an application, it's not accessible, it checks it in the background there with very basic checks there, and then says, wait, no, you have an issue, go fix it. And then you can push it into a PR, into the release cycle, and then you don't have that problem. Then when it gets released to production, you don't have that accessible debt anymore.
Brilliant. And that accessibilityinsights.io, that's a website that's free to use, right? It's free
Yes.
Service from Microsoft.
Yes, so that uses you can get an Android plugin, a Chrome plugin, an Edge plugin, a GitHub Actions, and an Azure DevOps plugin. And whatever you get there is open sourced, and it's exactly what I use on a day-to-day basis to make sure all my material, when I advocate accessible and the Java ecosystems, is actually accessible.
Awesome. Okay. So we talk about I'm something that's really always helps me understand these things or makes me more passionate is when you see the real world impact of these types of topics and things like that. So what are some really good examples that you like out there, sort of projects you've been involved in potentially, or things that you've seen from the Microsoft side of things that really inspire you, sort of real world examples?
Wow. Okay. So first of all, I think everyone knows the Xbox adaptive controller. So we did an ad in Super Bowl. So we did two ads. So this is the backstory behind that. The first ad is, here's the Xbox controller. It's adaptive. Go use it. And everyone's like, well done, Microsoft. Then we took a step back and we showed the people who helped us design it and the persona spectrums of the people who helped us design it and the real world stories of their parents and the people that were invested in the accessibility that looked and created that though. And then it really touched our audience way more. And whereas people were selling like, Pepsi or Coke or something else on Super Bowl, we were solving a watershed moment in Microsoft's evolution that we understood our customers, and that really is something I want to highlight there. That to understand your customers, you design excellent products, you create innovation. So the Xbox controller top of mind. The second thing I really want to address is that we are 95% of all PCs. Windows is the top operating system there. And with Windows and with Microsoft Office, you get a lot of accessible tools out of there. You get the screen reader software, you get the keyboards, you get with Microsoft Office, you get and OneNote, you get the Immersive Reader, which is a great tool to take your Word documents and to create it into an accessible experience for neurodiversity, for ADHD, for visual impairment, for navigation impairment also. So we really have a great product suite that we have if you go into the Microsoft ecosystem. And the reason for this and the really drive for this is Satya Nadella, our new CEO. He has a child who has a accessible requirement, and he made it a requirement for every single Microsoft employee, or 200,000 of us, to focus on D&I, so diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. So it's part of our job to advocate on this and to really promote it, though. But it's built into the ecosystem and the DNA that we have as a company as individuals.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think sometimes there's things in there baked in that you don't even realize were there. So you drop an image into a PowerPoint document or a Word document, and it's already applying automatic captioning through artificial intelligence, computer vision to give that an alt tag. So if someone's using a screen reader, it can explain obviously what's in that photo and things like that. It's amazing. The thing that always gets me is seeing AI as well. So it's maybe 6 or 7 years old almost now. But the app that Saqib Shaikh, a developer at Microsoft, who's visually impaired, who's been blind since he was 7 years old, the fact he can even develop and write code is baffling and mind-blowing to me and most people that I show the video to as part of my role. But the fact that he's then built an application using the cognitive services to basically bring that sense of vision of the world around people to the visually impaired is just absolutely amazing. For me, it's the best example of what we talk about generally with AI, which is sort of augmenting human abilities for obvious reasons. But the fact that the way it integrates with the world around people, that brings a sense of like being able to sit at a restaurant and read out the headings on a menu card, that type of thing, that just gives people an experience that otherwise they would be very difficult for them to have. Really breaks down that disability barrier, and I think it's something I'm really passionate about. I absolutely love that. The Immersive Reader I think is really useful. Like I use that all the time. I don't claim to have any particular disabilities or anything that it helps with, but just sometimes when I'm not focused or there's things on my mind and things, I'm not a great reader.
What sight do you have with your glasses?
I am slightly long-sighted, so I use it just for close work.
Yes, so you have an accessible requirement, and this is really the persona spectrum. So you're in part of that persona spectrum, but you're on the outskirts of it, and that's the important thing. So you're actually part in the same persona spectrum as me. I've got a little bit of whatever old age sight in my eyes though, and it's the same perspective, and that's what most people don't realize, that 1 out of 20 men are colorblind, and a lot of people are experiencing neurodiverse issues. COVID itself, anxiety is skyrocketed around it. That's an issue there though. So definitely, Immersive Reader is incredible, and it's the nice thing about Immersive Reader, can do translation. So you're seeing this kind of broad kind of overlap between AI services that are helping people who have accessible requirements, and also reach out to the population of humanity. If you hear my children scream, are they my children? Yeah, so excuse them, and maybe Teams will actually go and remove some of the thing there. So that's AI for Teams, removing my children from the session there. Yeah, so Immersive Reader is incredible, but we're bridging that divide also around translation services. So AI, I was once asked about, is AI going to destroy jobs? And I said, no. AI is going to destroy jobs and build careers, because we're using AI now to build our careers around all those little niggly things that we battled with. And we couldn't actually do. Now AI is helping us with the cognitive services, with Immersive Reader, and we can't see this as removing the abilities, but really accentuating those abilities and making them more rich.
Definitely. So if you're sitting here watching this live on YouTube, please don't pause or browse away. But if you're watching this back afterwards, pause this now and go and watch the Wheel Win campaign, which is the adaptive controller Super Bowl ad. Go and watch the Seeing AI prototype video, and go and check out Immersive Reader as maybe homework or something like that. But yeah, if you're watching live, you get to ask questions. So just drop any questions or things in the chat as we go, and we will endeavour to answer as many of those as possible. Yeah, I guess some things that you don't even know they're there as well. So I had a bit of personal experience with the eye tracking software in Windows. So last year, my mum passed away of motor neuron disease, but about 18 months or so ago, maybe 20 months, she was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. She was struggling with the kind of the build up to that and the diagnosis, and really difficult to get help for something like that. And sort of things are deteriorating really quickly, and there's very little people can do about it. And it's a horrible disease. But yeah, I was in a very, very fortunate position that sort of I live with tech day in, day out. I am not necessarily more capable than anyone else out there to use this eye tracking functionality in Windows, but I just knew about it, and I think that's the biggest difference. So with a relatively cheap device, about £200 for what was built for a gaming eye tracker from Tobii, which is, yeah, if you're a professional first-person shooter gamer, then you'll probably have one of these already for your Twitch streaming. But yeah, you can get one of these devices, plug that into USB on a Windows PC, and then enable the eye tracking functionality within Windows, which just comes to life. And for someone who can, towards the end of their life, only move their eyes, all of a sudden the entire power of a Windows desktop PC is completely available to them. So they can click with the mouse, they can type through some extra software and things that are built in as well from other charities and things. You can obviously use the text to speech and things like that, and finally start communicating again with the family and loved ones that are around you, giving you the kind of support at the most difficult part of what your life would be with something like that. So it's absolutely mind-blowing, kind of the technology that's available to us. And I think just knowing more about what's there, understanding the kind of the people that are trying to access services as a service provider that we're putting out there as well is really important. There was things like WhatsApp was almost impossible to use with an eye tracking device, or with a kind of a screen reader kind of world, because it's a mobile app. There is a kind of a WhatsApp for Windows, kind of using it on your desktop in the web, but it's not great, and it's not very accessible. Facebook, however, we used to interact and chat to my mum on Facebook because their integration with the kind of accessible features was far better than WhatsApp was. And previously we'd always WhatsApp mum, but we would use Facebook because it was just better. And if WhatsApp maybe had considered the WhatsApp web interface a bit better, maybe that would have been something that we could have used more. But it's that kind of approach really, and understanding someone might not just be on an Android or an iPhone coming to my application. Someone might be using a specialized device to get around some of their accessibility needs, and let's design an app in a way that works with that. So I think that's really important, and yeah, something I'm obviously very passionate and very bit emotional about, I guess, because it's just anyone could have done that. And for MND in particular, there's fabulous charities that help people, but the devices from the big companies that come with the eye trackers built in cost thousands of pounds, and pretty much everyone's got a Windows PC at their fingertips. If not in your own household, family or friends could lend you a laptop or something, right, to be able to do this. So most people that need that eye tracking functionality, it's free, built into Windows. You just need an eye tracker device for £200, and instead of going to a charity and kind of begging for one that costs thousands, you could potentially all be having this, and it could completely change. But yeah, it's something that not just MND, not just my mum, but so many different personas, like you say, Rory, out there that could really benefit from a greater understanding of what's possible. I think that's what's, if anything's really holding us back, it's not humanity isn't good enough. It's really thinking about, we just don't know what's there and what's already been designed, and the greater awareness that we can have, the more I suppose we can help people that really need it.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, no, that's it's a deeply touching subject, and yeah. So coming from someone with a disability, and I agree. Sometimes you just overlook it and you say it's the way things are. But with COVID, it's changed everything, because we're all working from home now. I'm still working from home, and we have an opportunity to stop and think exactly how can we work better at home. The office isn't available, the large office spaces aren't available, and now we have to become accessible at home. And the world has changed a lot around that. Software has changed a lot around that. You can switch on Microsoft Teams now, the transcriptions. You can go into the Immersive Reader for that. YouTube has transcriptions and immersive functions also, though. So it has helped. But also COVID is kind of like muting a lot of people with accessible requirements, because we're not at the office and you can't see those requirements. You might not know that the person has them. So what we are doing at Microsoft, when I showed you that I had achondroplasia dwarfism, we're advocating that you tell people that if you have that, and tell them that you have accessible requirements, and do descriptive explanation for that. If you have these requirements, don't bundle them in there, but say, listen, I have this issue or this accessible requirement, though. Please, can you just be cognizant of that, though? And we have a voice now. And we're learning to have that voice, because we can't no longer work in these office environments, and we have to shout out. And the shouting out is getting louder and louder and louder. And the EU Parliament and the American federal government is making it legislation. So we're going to get to the point, like GDPR did, that we are going to be immersed in immersive software for accessibility, because it's just the human evolution of innovation. We understand that accessibility leads to innovation, and also we've got compliance now that is showing us there. So it is a great opportunity, but there are also challenges which we will overcome.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think going back to your point of, it's not necessarily the big obvious disabilities as well that people struggle with, that are overlooked and ignored. Sometimes it's the marginal things, like you say about my glasses. I would never think to say I struggle to read and I need help with that. So I think understanding that you don't, if anyone's out there feeling like maybe they don't want to admit, they're trying to fight on as much as it is, right, with their difficulties. They don't want to label themselves or have to admit or ask for help. I think understanding, no matter how
at Microsoft,
how small the difference is,
we call it covering. So how do you cover it? And we've got a learn path that actually covers a lot of the topics that I mentioned today on accessibility fundamentals. And then you can learn exactly how to approach your work and your colleagues on how to look at covering and how to handle that, and then use the tools to really accommodate yourself to handle that, though. So it's in the links that we'll provide, the accessibility fundamentals, and you get a badge. Now you can challenge everyone here to get that badge, to promote it to friends and families and colleagues and co-workers, to look at that badge. It's a quick little kind of like an hour, and then you can say to them, I have an accessibility fundamentals badge and I understand what covering means. And please go ahead and do it. Reach out to me on Twitter on @RoryPreddy and tell me how you like that accessibility fundamentals learn path.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So yeah, we'll drop the link, I think, in the chat and YouTube. Yeah, if you're not following on YouTube, it's on the Microsoft Learn site. So if you search Microsoft Learn Accessibility Fundamentals, you'll find that. I'm definitely going to do it after this session. I have to speak to the project management team here and just clear some time. Absolutely, yeah. It's something that we're all kind of. Why wouldn't you be passionate about it? But maybe we don't make the time for it. Maybe we don't actually go out and learn as much of it as we should do. So I think it's definitely some homework for me, and hopefully everyone watching as well. Great. So I guess we've talked about what does good look like and the things that you can do. What's coming next, do you think? Obviously, I always like AI because it seems like we've got as far as we can possibly get, because there's an amazing new thing that was impossible 6 months or 6 years ago. Where do you think it's going to go next? Because ultimately, that's going to become the norm, and then something even more amazing is going to come along. What do you see in the future for AI and accessibility, do you think?
So in last year, we entered a Facebook challenge. Microsoft entered a Facebook challenge called the No Cap Challenge. And in that, so no caps as in no captions. And it's an AI attempt to describe an image better than an AI. So than a human can describe. And that's exactly what's baked into your Microsoft Accessibility Checker for Word and PowerPoint. And we beat the humans with our AI. So what we did is that we took linguistics, the spoken word, and we approached it also with image descriptions. And we merged the two, and then we used AI and neural networks to actually look at the efficiency of that. And we won. We beat the challenge for the Facebook No Caps challenge. And we're seeing a lot of that the AI has progressed to a point that we can do things better than a human can. And we're watching now that kind of human-computer interaction, that immersive experience. And we're going to see that with voice and navigation and touch. Remember that hoverboard kind of craze there, that now you can go on a hoverboard there, and that took overnight though. So the same kind of vibe is going to be with accessibility. Now I've got a little click pointer here, a Logitech presenter, and this Logitech. The Logitech presenter is gyroscope. I no longer have to reach in for my mouse there. I can just point it there and click in there. And this is really, this uses a little bit of AI, because it enables me to do my presentations by sitting here, and I can just do that. And we're seeing that immersive. I don't know the AI in here, but I know that it does have here. I don't know the AI in certain other technologies, but it's going to become immersive. And that really is the next evolution of human accessibility, that we're just going to do things and we're going to go, wow, I didn't even know that was there though. And that's the innovation, making people not aware that they just fix their accessibility through AI.
I love that. Yeah, the same Logitech presenter. I mean, we're not sponsored, if anyone was wondering. But yeah, the same spot presenter that I've got is I got it for doing remote sessions. So even before the pandemic, there was sometimes people that couldn't get into Microsoft Paddington or something like that when we do events there on AI, and sometimes we have remote people joining. And rather than using a laser pointer in an office building, which nobody can see outside of that room, using that Logitech presenter, it's got a built-in to the device. It's got the kind of the highlighting features or the magnifying features and things like that. So you can point to a particular part on the screen, and if someone's watching that through a shared screen session, something like that remotely, they get to see where you're pointing as well. So even that, I never thought of that as trying to be as inclusive as possible. But yeah, obviously even just that is a feature in itself that is really useful for people that can't get there in person for whatever reason. So yeah, I think understanding all the things around us and how we can put those together to ultimately build something as accessible and inclusive as possible is really key, right? Cool. So what's if we give a bit of an insight as to what's in the accessibility fundamentals, then what does that actually cover?
Well, first of all, you have to understand Microsoft history. Like words, like I said, like covering and the inclusive design. And then once you understand that, then you can look at becoming accessible in your day-to-day life with the Microsoft Office suite, programming for accessibility. So using the Accessibility Insights IO to check your websites, your DevOps tooling, are they accessible? And then it also gives you the ability to understand next steps around your experience around accessibility. Because remember I said to you, it shouldn't be bolt-on. So how do you incorporate that into your development process? How do you incorporate and create the persona spectrums? So all of that is in the accessibility fundamentals. But the nice thing about it is that you get a badge, and you can actually go and tweet that badge, and you can say to people, I'm now an ally. So an ally is someone who might not have accessibility requirements, but it's someone who supports the accessible ecosystem and the community to say, I'm one of the 3 billion people who have friends and families and loved ones who have accessible requirements. So there's 1 billion people there who have accessible requirements, everywhere from visual impairment to motor to neurodiversity. But when you take their family and friends and everyone who's heavily invested in those individuals, there's 3 billion people, nearly half the world's population. So if you get the badge, you can say, I'm part of the allies there, the allyship there. So I challenge you, get the badge. It's quick and easy. And I look forward to you publish on your Twitter or your LinkedIn profile and say, I got the badge.
Nice. And if you're maybe a bit more involved, if you're a developer developing particular services, if you're programming or developing software, is there, I guess, an approach to learn a bit more about being accessible in the kind of design and development process for applications?
Yes. So accessibilityinsights.io, we have the Chrome and Edge plugin, and then you can just go into your websites or your Android apps or your Windows app, and you can just go click on the FastPass, and the FastPass will check WCAG, so the Web Center for Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 AA compliant, which is what the federal government and the EU Parliament is actually mandating as mandatory, and it'll give you a nice quick report. It takes like 2 seconds to do and give you a report, and you can go learn around why your site or your web app isn't accessible. And that's a great place to start. You can go, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that my color contrast was wrong, or I didn't have an image alt tag. And I love doing a live demo there. And I take the company that I'm in there and I just run through there, go, what? There's something you missed. And you can take that and file it to GitHub, or just print out the report, send it to your CEO, your manager, your boss, your loved ones, and say, let's just start on something small. Start on something small with the programming report. Something easy is alt image tags. You can even use the Microsoft tooling for that. And then create captions on your videos. So captioning on your videos is very easy. You can use a tool that we have called videoindexer.ai. So let me just get that so videoindexer.ai. And what that does, that's the same captioning tool that we use on our sites there, and it ties into Azure Cognitive Services. Sorry, this must be a spam caller because no one actually has my number. And videoindexer.ai actually goes in and uses all of the services to say who are the actors, what are the captions that you can do there. You can download the captions, pop it on the YouTube video, your PowerPoint videos there, and that's the one that I do. You know what I do there? So I take these videos that I have, and I like to sometimes script out some of my calls, and I pull out the captions there, and I go through all of the captions there, and I use that just to create scripts for me. I'm about to do a video presentation after this and make sure that I am ready for it. I actually reverse engineer my own captions with my own voice, and it picks up my South African accent pretty well.
We always find that a little bit humorous, the caption. Sometimes it's not absolutely spot on, but I guess it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect.
It's learning. As you progress there, it's got learning algorithms there. So every time I do it with videoindexer.ai, it learns my accent and gets better and better and better.
That's cool. Yeah, Video Indexer is an awesome tool, and it's just one of so many. We could talk for days on how many there are, and obviously what you can do with them, and ultimately the Seeing AI, where you bring a couple of things together and do something completely life-changing. I think it's about the creativity and applying new thinking as to how we can use a few of these off-the-shelf APIs and this kind of AI that's already been built and democratized. I think sometimes it just takes a bit of creativity, or it takes exploring some of those challenges in a bit more detail in a room together to say, look, let's not stand for this anymore. Let's just go and fix this. And I think that's there's always massive opportunities there as well for developers to lean on some AI to enrich their experience they're delivering as well. So not just going out there to obviously do use the accessibility insights. That's an absolute mandatory thing, and everyone should be doing that no matter what you're doing. But if you're developing an application that you could also just add a bit of the immersive reader kind of thing, or a bit of artificial intelligence to help translate that and open that up even more, then that's awesome. And I think there's AI for accessibility grants as well from Microsoft as well, right?
Yeah, so $25 million you can get. And what we do is we look at projects and the application of them, and then we do grants around that Microsoft to help uplift the programming community around AI for accessibility. A lot of our tools we actually helped develop with those hackathons. Like the Xbox controller was actually a hackathon as part of the AI for accessibility
Really?
drive. Yeah, and that was a hackathon that we did and in 3 days, and it was designed and engineered as part of that program.
I didn't know that. I know there's countless things that I'm amazed by the hackathons, but I didn't know the controller was from those. That's pretty cool. If anyone hasn't seen the adaptive controller Super Bowl ad, firstly, where have you been? And also, do check it out. It's really cool. And I think there was the event in Vegas. Not sure what the event was, but they brought the kids out on stage right after the ad, and it was just kind of, yeah, if that doesn't melt your heart, I don't know what will. But it's a fantastic story, and yeah, the concept of if everyone plays, we all win. And yeah, if not just Xbox games, but if we can apply that kind of logic to everything we do, services, websites, things that we deliver to people, if we can make that make a world where everyone has kind of the equal playing field, if AI can help with that, then absolutely we need to be focusing and bringing everyone the kind of the same experience, which is really important. Great. This has been absolutely brilliant, Rory. I guess next steps, you're gonna want people to go on Accessibility Fundamentals, get that badge. Can we tweet you if we get the badge?
Yes, please, and I'll retweet you and I'll hashtag our head of accessibility and show them that I'm a great ally and also a great advocate for accessibility, and you're a great ally to the broader ecosystem.
Brilliant. Challenge accepted. I'm going to do that. So what's your Twitter handle?
At Rory Preddy. So Rory, Rory, and Preddy, Preddy. So at Rory Preddy is my Twitter handle. And I do a lot of Java advocacy and accessibility advocacy. So follow me, and I occasionally do some really nice, entertaining memes on programming, because, you know, we have a weird sense of humor, programmers. We're a bit salty and a bit sour, but we're funny as hell usually.
No, I love that. We live very much in that world, and lots of followers that are agencies and creatives and lots of devs that yeah, you can't be a dev without memes, right? So
yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, thanks for joining us. This has been amazing, and no doubt that we'll be doing something very soon with you and the team at Microsoft on more on accessibility, and maybe that's when things are a little bit less remote with COVID. Maybe we can get in the same room at some point. But yeah, definitely really excited about what we can do and help spread the word, because ultimately I think that realistically now, with technology so advanced, it's spreading the word that's the only blocker, and sessions like today are absolutely great for that. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for hosting me today and being a partner with Microsoft. Yeah, so Lawai, Andy, Rachel, it's so great for you to host me today, and I look forward to you on hearing your challenges, your adventures, and your experiences on the Twitter sphere. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thanks all.